In this video, I'm going to be talking about the top 7 drivers of 2019. So what we look for whenever we're testing them all out were how they actually performed, how the quality was, and also the price. And then we tried the best we could to find one that's cheaper, one that's kind of middle of the range, and then one that's more expensive as well. So you can kind of go off whatever your budget is and what you're specifically looking for. But before we get started, I will just mention our gear giveaway. If you want to enter into our subscriber milestone giveaway, so every 1,000 subscribers, simply subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment giveaway down below, do those 3 things and you'll be automatically entered. Okay, so let's get started. Number 7 is going to be the Cobra King F8 and F8 Plus. This is a driver that came out in 2018, but it's still a great option for someone who wants a premium club but doesn't want to spend a fortune. The driver comes with Cobra Connect as well, which is going to allow you to track your drives, and you're going to be able to see where each of your drives went after the round, which is pretty cool, and also how far they went as well. So you can kind of get an average and all that kind of stuff just to see some additional stats, which is pretty cool. The standard F8 is best suited for kind of average players, but they also have the F8 Plus version, which is a lower spinning driver, which is also going to give you lower launches, which is probably better for better golfers, like a low, maybe mid handicap, that kind of thing. So let's jump over to some pros and cons of this driver. So pros, the price is much more affordable than the others. They have 2 options to pick from, so depending on how, basically what your skill level is. It has 16 different combinations of loft and weight, so you can play around with it and tweak it to suit your game. Cons, it's long but not as accurate as some of the other drivers on the list when it was mishit. I'm not a fan of the way it looks and find it to be a bit distracting to look at. It's a pretty busy head, lots of stuff going on, so that's kind of the main things I didn't like about it. But overall, if you don't want to spend a fortune on a golf club, it could be a great option for you. Number 6 is going to be the Cobra F9 Speedback. And if you like hitting Cobra clubs and you want the latest and greatest model, then this is going to be it. The driver is quite a bit more expensive than the previous F8, but they've improved a lot of the things and made it more aerodynamic for like more speed, and also a lower center of gravity for more forgiveness. It does have an upper face that's designed to give higher launches with less spin, and then a lower face that's designed for the opposite. So it is pretty cool, just because most kind of average golfers, they don't always hit the ball square, so they've kind of made the face to suit mishits that are most common to happen, and that's to either hit it on the top or hit it low, generally not in the sweet spot. So they've kind of engineered it to give the best possible result on mishits, which is pretty cool. Pros, it sounds and feels more solid and at impact compared to the F8. This is one of the more forgiving drivers I've hit. And then it comes with Cobra Connect technology as well, which again will keep track of where all your drives went on the course and also how far they were to give you an average. Cons, it's much more expensive than the F8 driver. It's hard finding the right combination of loft and weight for your game, just because being an average player, if you are an average player, it's going to be quite a bit to deal with all that kind of stuff. If you're a better player, you probably already know kind of what settings you're looking for. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And then it wasn't as long as some of the others on the list for me personally. I'm not saying it's not the longest, it could be the longest for your game, but just for me in my swing personally, it wasn't the longest. Number 5 is going to be the TaylorMade M5 and M6 driver, and these are the latest drivers from TaylorMade, and if you're a fan of their clubs, then these could be a great fit for you. The M5 and M6 are much closer together in terms of performance than the M3 and M4 were. Only the M6 has adjustments, so with the prior M3 and M4s, pretty much it was if you were a low handicap, you would go with the M3. If you're a high handicap and need the most forgiveness, you go with the M4. But the M5 and M6, they're designed to be much more similar, and pretty much the only main difference is that the M5 comes with like adjustments, like weight and all that kind of stuff, while the M6 doesn't, and that's pretty much the only main difference. And pretty much whatever you're looking for, you can go based on that. But when I struck these pure, the distance was only slightly better than the older versions, which is kind of unfortunate. I would like to see more distance on them, but I did notice that they had a much bigger sweet spot than before. So basically, if you are to mishit it, you definitely got more distance than on the previous versions, but if you do hit the sweet spot, I noticed that the distance was pretty similar. Those are kind of main kind of advantages and disadvantages of these new ones. Pros, they are all inspected, so they're as close to the limit as possible. So basically with the pretty much any other driver in the past, there's a limit on what the club manufacturers can do to it. There's they can't go above the limit for in terms of specifications, all this kind of stuff. So basically they have to pretty much make them as close to it as possible, and then they gave themselves a margin of safety. So it basically, they weren't always as good as they should be. They weren't always as good as like the professionals, just because they weren't inspected. But these ones are all inspected to make sure they're as close to that limit as possible to give you the best performance possible. So it's pretty cool. They do have twist face, which helps a lot on off-center hits. So basically, if you hit it more towards the heel or more towards the toe, the face shape is designed to give you the best distance and most forgiveness as possible. And then they look really good and feel good through impact as well. Cons, the M5 is the most expensive driver on the list, and the M6 is slightly cheaper just because it doesn't have the adjustments on it. My launch angle wasn't as high as some of the other clubs. That's just me personally. I'm not saying it's going to be for you. And then my distance was only slightly better than the older clubs, but overall it is a really solid driver, and I did like it. Number 4 is going to be the Ping G410. And if you're a fan of Ping drivers and actually want some adjustability, then this driver could be perfect for you. This driver basically takes the performance and forgiveness of my number 1 pick and then adds more adjustability and also better sound to it. So most Ping drivers in the past, they weren't adjustable. So this one was, which is pretty cool. And the only reason I didn't have this ranked number 1 is because it's quite a bit more expensive, and the extra benefits probably aren't worth it in my opinion compared to my number 1 driver. I'll definitely admit that this one here, it is slightly better than my number 1 pick, and we'll get to that in a second. But in my opinion, the extra cost wasn't enough to justify it, but definitely could be for you. So it's going to be up to you to decide. Pros, this is the first weight adjustable driver from Ping. It's a quiet and solid sounding driver, and it gave me a high launch and also a lower spin on it as well. Cons, it's an expensive driver. The benefits weren't much better than my number 1 pick to justify the higher price tag. Again, they were slightly better, but it was only marginal. Number 3 is going to be the Cleveland Launcher HB. And if you're a high handicap golfer and are looking for a new driver, then this is definitely the one for you. It's still one of my favorite drivers to this day just because it's incredibly forgiving and it launches the ball way up in the air, which is definitely a confidence booster. It's not as long as some of the other ones out there, and it's not the best for workability, being able to like draw and fade the ball. But if you want to bomb it long and straight down the fairway, then this is probably your best bet. Pros, the price is much more reasonable than some of the other ones. It's the most forgiving driver on mishits, and it's going to help you out if you want a higher ball launch. Cons, if you have faster swing speeds, you're probably going to get more distance from something else. And if you want to draw or fade the ball, then this isn't going to be the best fit for you. But if you are a high handicapper or a beginner who just wants kind of forgiveness and you want to hit it down the fairway, this is going to be a great option for you. Number 2 is going to be the Callaway Epic Flash and Sub-Zero. And if you've been a fan of the previous Epic or Rogue drivers, then I'm pretty positive you're going to love the new Epic Flash and get more benefit out of it. It was better for me in pretty much all aspects compared to the previous models, but the price tag is something I had troubles with, and that's kind of why it's ranked number 2. It is the second highest priced driver on this list, just behind the M5, and the performance was really good. But some people don't want to spend that much money, and I kind of have to take into account price whenever I make the list. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. If you do have the money to spend, then by all means go for it. But I'm trying to suit this more towards kind of the average player who doesn't want to spend $500-600 on a driver, that kind of thing. But the standard Epic Flash is going to be best suited for average players, while the Sub-Zero is a lower spinning and it's going to be suited for better players as well. Pros, it was the longest driver for me on this list. It was slightly higher launching than my number 1 pick, and it was more forgiving than the Cobra and TaylorMade. Cons, the price is up there. It's not the best if you need a lot of alignment help. Certain clubs are better for aligning properly, whereas this one, it didn't give a whole lot of help. So if you are someone who is like a high handicap or a beginner who needs the most help possible, probably not the best option. But I also have it ranked number 2 because my first pick is going to be cheaper, and I found it to be much more accurate off the tee compared to this one here, and that's kind of the main thing I'm looking for in my game. I don't really necessarily want the most distance. I would rather be, 10, 15 yards shorter, but in the fairway way more of the time. And that's another big reason that I have my number 1 pick being there. But my number 1 pick is going to be the Ping G400 driver. And this is my all-time favorite driver, and even though it's a bit of an older model, it can still compete and is much cheaper than some. It was about 6 to 8 yards shorter on average than the Epic, but I did find that I hit more fairways with this club than most, and that's pretty much the main reason why I do like it so much. The G410 is slightly better because it has adjustments, which this one doesn't, but it only made like a slight difference, and it's much more money, so that extra cost, it might be worth it for you, but for me it wasn't. I've had this one, I didn't really see a reason to upgrade, and this is the one I'm currently using, and I really have nothing bad to say about it. Pros, it's a great driver for low to mid handicap players. It's quite a bit cheaper than most of the others. It was the best sounding and most solid driver on the list. Cons, the Cleveland launcher is better for high handicaps or beginners. It wasn't quite as long as the others, but I could definitely control it much better. And then there are minimal adjustments on it. So with some of the other ones, you can adjust like weight, loft, like there's 16 different combinations. With this one, it's very, very minimal. So some people want to be able to adjust it. Some people don't. So pretty much whatever you're looking for, make your own decision. But those are pretty much the main pros and main cons. The Ping G series is definitely my favorite ones. But whatever you're kind of looking for, all 7 of these are great options. So go based on whatever your budget is and whatever you're specifically looking for. But if you'd like to see more images, more reviews, or get any of these for the lowest price available, click the link down below in the description. At the time of making this video, that was the best place I could find it. So you can go ahead and check out the current price if you want. And if you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you haven't already watched and commented on our latest video, click the video card to the left and get yourself another entry into our golf giveaway.